Cobra.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, and I'm joined again with Cody IG. Cody, how are we doing today, brother?
Doing good, man. Excited to be here with you, the people. Talk about another just wild week of college football.
Just another wild week, another roller coaster, nothing unexpected to us. I mean, there's a lot of unexpected things that happen, but we always expect a great weekend of college football coming our way every single week. It's been a roller coaster every single week since week one. Now looking at the week 4 recap, we are finally here, almost pretty much a month in now. I mean, looking at the end of September, started pretty early in September. Probably after next week, we'll consider it a full month in. But we got some good games to talk about here. Hopefully we can get some good viewership and good comments on the live stream. Also, you can listen to this podcast anytime on Apple Podcasts, called the Gin College Podcast under the Gin Sports Network of podcasts. So hope you guys check it out later. If you don't check it out live right now, it'll also be available in video format on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So check it out if you don't get it live. All right, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about Arkansas and Texas A&M. Arkansas taking the dub 20-10. Let's talk about that game a little bit, Cody.
Yeah, the Aggies and the Razorbacks matched up well. I think the Aggies were ranked 7th and the Razorbacks 16th. So A lot of people thought Texas A&M was going to take care of business. I kind of seen this one in the pudding. I thought that the Arkansas Razorbacks were playing with that chip on their shoulder, and A&M, they were boasting the number one defense, like I mentioned, but I said it was skewed. It could have been skewed, and it was, because Arkansas hung 20 points on them. That's like 14, 15 more than they usually get scored on. And yeah, the Razorbacks look good. They've rushed all over them. And the Aggies look like they don't really have an offensive identity. Kellen Mond, he's on the Vikings now, backing up Kirk Cousins. And yeah, you can see that they're lost at that position. And as a team,
Yeah, they have some things to figure out, definitely. Losing to 16 Arkansas, probably going to drop a little bit in the AP rankings going into the week 5. But yeah, 4-0 for the first time since 2003. Really impressive for the Razorbacks. And Aggie's defense, Texas A&M's defense, we talked about this last week in the pre-podcast, how they were number 1 in the nation going into the game, allowing less than a touchdown. And that is 6 points, not 7 per game. So that's pretty impressive. To allow 20 by Arkansas definitely provides an outlier and will increase that average quite a bit.
Yeah, A&M dropped 15 spots in the rankings, or they dropped to 15, so I think that's down 8 spots.
Okay.
And the Razorbacks, they moved up from 16 to 8, I believe.
Okay, cool. And I see a section here in the document for us to go over the AP poll rankings.
Kind of just like a reference to even look at,
it'll be
times like this.
Yeah, it'll be a good roadmap kind of going forward into the season, seeing who's going to move in certain places based on their current schedules going into conference play here. We're getting into the thick of it here, going into week 5 and pretty much throughout the rest of the season, the regular season. So it's going to be a lot of conference play, a lot of placement games for a lot of these teams.
That game was really Arkansas the whole time. They were leading, I think, from start to finish, and just looked like they're a better team from the get-go. And their coach, Sam Pittman, he's an underrated blue-collar guy, comes from some small schools, I think, like Georgia State. He's an offensive lineman coach, and yeah, he's really got those Razorbacks buying into what he's selling, and he's got them hyped up down there.
Yeah, it really surprised the bettors too. A&M coming in -5.5, over under 47. That under did hit. And obviously, if you took Arkansas money line, probably got pretty good payout there. You had to sniff that one out against the number 1 defense in the college football landscape in the NCAA. So had to be a really big sniffer. Had to have a good nose to sniff that one out. So moving on,
huge SEC implications going forward.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, and it's really gonna paint the picture for the SEC. And we've said this too in previous shows. The SEC is wide open. Any game, any place in that conference is open, free for the taking. You just have to go out and take it and want it more than the other team every single week. And there's going to be a lot of good games coming up, especially SEC-wise.
Yeah, Georgia, Bama, they both got big ones. We'll talk about that on Friday, but they both got big games this weekend.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Let's talk about Notre Dame, Wisconsin. Notre Dame will continue their streak at 4-0, defeating the 18th ranked Wisconsin Badgers. And Wisconsin came in -6.5. Another kind of an upset game. We didn't expect this out of Notre Dame. A dominant performance, winning 41-13, covering and some. Actually, no, they didn't even need to cover. They had +6.5. So you took them money line. That was a good pick too. I think I took them money line in one of my parlays, but I got screwed in another leg of that. So we'll talk about that here shortly. But yeah, Notre Dame, it was all about Notre Dame, had a pretty big pick. It was pretty much them the entire game. Brian Kelly. Yeah.
That box score is a little deceiving though. It was 13-13 in the fourth quarter. And it just pretty much unraveled for Graham Mertz and the Badgers. Graham Mertz, he threw his first touchdown pass, but he also threw 4 interceptions. 2 were pick six in the fourth quarter, aforementioned. So
yeah,
it was crazy. And Chris Tyree, I don't know if you guys seen it. Definitely look it up. He had a 96-yard kick return that was just electric. And
yeah. Yeah, that was another game that was open for the taking too. For most of the game, I considered Notre Dame to have control just because they held it to a tie game going into the fourth at the Wisconsin Badgers Stadium. So it was,
and they looked like they were in control. It was 13-13, but like Graham Mertz, he never looked good. And yeah, it's their running back, Wisconsin Badgers running back, Malusi. He said he's embarrassed to be a part of what happened, and can't blame him.
Can't really blame them. We got a comment here from Michael Pfeiffer. If the Irish gets past Cincy this weekend, the schedule sets them up for an undefeated season. Yeah, it's going to be a contest, and especially how Notre Dame's faced some adversity going into this Wisconsin game. I think that's what caused the bookies to really make these odds the way they did, because they saw the struggles that Notre Dame had offensively. They saw the vulnerabilities on defense. So they're kind of giving, and Wisconsin they've been pretty dominant as far as both sides of the ball are considered. Put them at home, put them -6.5, maybe a little bit generous for Notre Dame betting wise, but
I think that bye week really played into the bets too. A little unknown. They had a week off and thought they'd come in a lot fresher looking than what they actually did.
Yeah.
Jack Cohen, the quarterback for Notre Dame, he did go down in the third quarter with a leg injury. I think it's just an ankle sprain, but gonna look at that going into the matchup against Cincinnati this week, which I'm just so excited. That's going to be insane. I think Cincinnati's got it, but we'll talk about that Friday.
Yeah, we'll talk about that Friday. It might be the strongest contest for Notre Dame for the rest of the season, which is kind of crazy to say this early.
I think for both teams, yeah, actually.
Yeah, for both teams. In Cincinnati, they've been dominant the entire season. So I'm anticipating a great contest for that. We'll talk about that more in depth on Friday, I'm sure. But yeah, it's just one of those things. That's college football, man. Giving up 28 points in the fourth quarter after being tied 13-13 the entire game. Quite a slow start. And to see that finish that way, I'm sure that the bettors were liking the under on that going into the fourth. But the over bettors wound up coming in clutch.
That was a crazy fourth quarter for bettors. That's for sure.
Yeah, over under 45. I
didn't really have vested interest in this game at all, but it's crazy stat. Even after letting up 28 in the fourth quarter, Wisconsin Badgers are favored against the Wolverines this weekend.
Unbelievable. There's got to be something skewed there, because I'm taking Michigan all day long after this performance, after the vulnerabilities on defense for Wisconsin. I'm taking Michigan. Now, they didn't have the best, and we'll talk about this shortly too. They didn't have the best, most dominant performance against Rutgers this past weekend. But they did squeeze out the win by 7. So we'll talk about that here shortly. But right now, let's talk about Nebraska MSU. I think that's what everyone wants to talk about. Very close game in Spartan Stadium, night game. And the story of the night was Matty Coggs basically getting that field goal in a clutch moment. They couldn't punch the touchdown in. They had it, with enough time to punch it in with the touchdown. And Kenneth Walker, he showed us some vulnerabilities. I think Nebraska really gave us Kenneth Walker's kryptonite, and that is eliminating the green grass in front of him, eliminating the open space that he has the ability to run through. And if you do that, he doesn't really have the chance to give you the shake and bake and the pump and go, basically, just that spurt of speed. He needs green grass to get to do that. He needs space. And the linemen, they didn't really do their jobs. It was basically, Peyton Thorne was telling his linemen, go block whoever you want. And I'm just going to try to have Kenneth Walker figure it out. It's worked every single week so far. But against this Nebraska defense, that wasn't good enough.
Yeah, that was a great game. I was locked in. I was flipping back and forth between that game and West Virginia, Oklahoma, both pretty good games. But yeah, seeing this go into overtime, Michigan fan, I don't want the Sparties to lose because I like our matchup to be just as hyped up as can be. So I wanted you guys to get out of there with the win, even though because I had the 5 points already covered. I took Nebraska with the +5. But yeah, to see what's his name? Kimbrough, for your defensive player, get that pick off Adrian Martinez in overtime and set up you guys to kick that field goal. That was incredible.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about it, you barely covered because you got Nebraska +5. We punched that in the end zone right there. Yeah. We're on like the 2-3 yard line. We punched that in. Maybe, I don't know, we were somewhere within the red zone, I think within the 10. If we punched it in for a touchdown, -5 hits.
Yeah, and Kimbrough almost took it to the house on that pick in overtime.
Yeah.
But even to set that all up, your boy Jaden Reed, he tied the game up with 4 minutes left in that crazy punt return. That's I love watching special team plays. That's awesome, man.
Oh, you know what? I want to touch on that a little bit. The misdirection by having 2 receivers being able to catch that, misdirect the kicking team's defense to be able to attack the ball carrier. I mean, they completely bit on that right side guy. I don't know who it was specifically.
It was the other Naylor.
Yeah, Jalen Naylor.
They
Yeah.
got
So
a nice that duo's got a. They told I said that I read an article that they work on it in practice and everything, and
yeah, that
they
had
were
to be
ready for it.
structured
Yeah.
because that
Yep.
really sends the defense for a loop. I mean, you got two guys looking up like this, like they're about to catch it. And then next thing you know, oh, that guy way over the other side of the field, coast to coast, he's got the ball. Okay. So now that's an issue for us, especially if we all bit on this one guy. Maybe you want to divert. I mean, but as a defense, as a kicking team, you have no way of anticipating the structure within a punt return. You know, you think it's just one guy down there. Just got to attack that one guy, shimmy down, get the tackle. But it wasn't that easy. Mel Tucker and the entire specialty teams coaching staff for Michigan State really did their jobs, and they found a hole. It was
The same
impressive.
article where I read that those two have worked on their decoy. Mel Tucker said that he showed his team prior to this game film like highlights of special team plays that just completely changed games in college football. And that's just the kind of story you love to hear from your second year coach. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I wish I heard about Jim Harbaugh still doing. The kind of, it's just something about Mel Tucker I really like.
Yeah, 100%. And he's doing a great job. Obviously, you can't really count that first year, the COVID year, starting out at a new college, coming from Colorado. Really had high expectations, especially with D'Antonio leaving, kind of not leaving on a great note for Mark. But for him to come in there, especially to do what he did in his first year, so. But to give
him that statement win at Michigan was huge, though.
That was huge.
Even though we were both bad teams, getting that for your culture as the Spartans going forward was instrumental to what he's doing right now, I think.
Yeah, it definitely was, and I'm excited to see what they do going forward into conference play against some even better teams in Nebraska. Because that probably shouldn't have been that close.
Before we move on, I want to talk about Scott Frost for a second. On that punt, which tied the game, he told his punter not to kick it to Reed, and he pretty much threw him under the bus after the game. And that's just not good coaching, in my opinion. You can't blame your punter for kick. I mean, both those dudes are electric, and it was you can't blame your player on that kind of play. And I just don't think that's going to be good for the culture and the locker room going forward. That's his 9th consecutive loss against a ranked team as the Huskers coach too. So
yeah, so I mean, you look at it from objective perspectives. It's not good to really throw a rift in the entire team chemistry, especially from a coaching's perspective. You're supposed to really mend your team chemistry if it's in peril. To create that type of diversion is not what you want to do, especially coming out publicly and saying those things. It is what it is. Hopefully they can rebound from it. And they're coming off a little bit of a tough loss against Oklahoma too. That big rivalry game. Probably should have maybe won that game too. At least got a little closer. It was a close game, low scoring game, but they got a little bit to figure out. And they're frustrated. They're trying to, get things going offensively. They want to, really hone in their defense. Their defense is there mostly, but there's still gaps and there's still holes and improvements to be made for the Cornhuskers. So it's going to be a battle.
You got to feel for those kids, though.
Yeah, it's going to depend how they finish out the entire season, how they rank amongst the Big Ten and on the AP polls. So we'll look forward to that. Let's talk about Rutgers, Michigan. Rutgers losing by 7 to the Wolverines at the Big House. Maybe a little closer than that should have been, but Rutgers has really emerged to become I almost want to call them a parasite. Just looking at the last season, seeing them beat Michigan State, seeing them almost beat Michigan. Those are types of things that should never happen. Rutgers hasn't really been in the Big Ten for that long, probably, about 5 years now, something like that. So they're a newcomer to the Big Ten Conference. Are you surprised about what you saw on Saturday at the Big House from Rutgers and Michigan? Were you surprised with the outcome? Or were you surprised with what happened within that game?
Definitely surprised, but not for maybe the reasons you'd expect. Like I talked about on Friday's show, last year they gave us a really hard time, and Greg Schiano has turned around the Rutgers program. They have got a lot of good transfers from other Big Ten schools come in when they don't get playing time. So they've made some strides as far as the program. But to be up 20-3 and have such a good first half performance and follow it up with that, I'm really disappointed in my Michigan Wolverines, and especially the play calling. I mean, we were just trying to run it between the tackles, which has worked the last 3 games, but the Rutgers were doing a fantastic job of doing it. I mean, Hassan Haskins, he ran for 2 touchdowns in the first 2 drives, but after that, they were completely shut down. The pair, Lightning and Thunder, barely combined for 100 yards, and Cade McNamara, he took a big hit, and afterwards, man, it looked like he needed glasses. He didn't know where he was. He looked lost, missing wide receivers left and right, just leaving it short, and it wasn't good, man. I myself was put JJ McCarthy in, like, why not? Let's see what they can do. But we did hold tight, got out of there with the win, and that's what matters. We got the Badgers next week, so that'll be a real test.
That will be a real test. The Badgers are pissed too, especially after that Notre Dame game. They're going to be coming back with a vengeance. But I like to say, and I don't like to say this, but I mean, this was bound to happen for both of our teams, your Wolverines and my Spartans. They faced some adversity this past week, and they had to rebound. I saw Peyton Thorne in the pocket. He looked scared. He didn't want to pass the ball. Just like you said, McNamara took that big hit. He was probably scared too. They're playing on pins and needles. They're like, are we really going to tie Rutgers? Are we going to go to overtime? State and Nebraska wound up going to overtime, so they had to face that and go that extra step. But a little bit of adversity early. I think to both come out unscathed with a win, remain undefeated, I think is best case scenario. Regroup and get ready for next week.
Yeah, definitely to take that first kind of punch in the mouth, and you got to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself who you are. To see where they go next will really be telling. Your Spartans, they get a break next week against Western Kentucky, so at least they got a little breathing room here.
Yeah. Hey, no breaks after what I've seen this past week, and let's talk about that right now. Let's talk about Clemson and who they play.
It was NC State, North Carolina State, the Wolfpack.
NC State to lose that game. I mean, in 2 overtimes, that's big time. I mean, I think, Cody, you have some inside information why this possibly could be, some information that was unbeknownst to me before this. Can you share that with the people?
Yeah, I actually wish I had figured this out a lot earlier. I don't know why it's not more common knowledge, but Clemson, they allow kids to transfer out of their program, but they don't accept transfers in. And in today's college football landscape, with the talent, just recruiting classes years out, and there's always a next man underneath. So a lot of times the 2s and 3s in a position transfer out. And if Clemson's not letting kids come into their program that's so huge and their brand's so big, they're missing out on a whole entire category of kids that could be talent that could be helping them win these games. And it's starting to show through.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate that it's somewhat of a structural issue for them, but it's showing its true colors as far as losing games like this. You're a major league team. You shouldn't be losing these types of games. You shouldn't be even close in these games. So to see this happen is kind of unprecedented. But with this other news kind of coming to light, really helps it make more sense, I guess, to at least.
It's not just complete collapse for no reason.
There's structural issues, to say the least. And then Auburn almost losing to Georgia State. Really crazy game there too. I mean, you look at the bettor's perspective too. I mean, you had to have thrown Auburn and Clemson. If you're trying to just add a couple legs to a parlay, we'll throw them both in there, win against a couple BS teams.
Yeah.
But that just shines the light on there's no BS teams out there, really. Any team can come out and play. They might want it more, and they can win that game. Doesn't matter what team it is. Doesn't matter what conference it is, cross-conference, non-conference. It's possible for anybody to win in this league. Yeah,
and sometimes they set those lines like crazy. I mean, those two weren't too crazy, but upcoming this weekend, I think the Ole Miss, Alabama's heavily favored. Georgia, they play an SEC opponent that's not Vanderbilt and not lifeless, but they're the line is crazy high, and it's something to think about before jumping in and just picking those favorites,
100%, and that's something that I kind of fell victim to this week, and it was kind of a rookie mistake, I guess I'll call. I had a couple parlays out. Clemson was in one of them. I think Auburn was in another one. And just kind of looking at those games, they could be minus 600 going into the game, money line. And then you look at that and be like, it's not really going to bring my odds down as far as a parlay is concerned, because, it's adding another leg. It's another possibility to have that entire parlay crumble. So you're going to add probably anywhere from 800 to, 1,000, depending on how many legs you already have. Even if it's minus 600 to 800, you're not going to be losing out on too many odds points. But to see that happen, and that's what makes it crumble, kind of crazy. Just real quick, I want to talk about, before we get into the AP polls, Maybe we talk about a couple of these other games too, but I kind of want to talk about Mississippi State losing by a field goal to LSU. That was another one that I had money line. That was actually one of Cody's picks this past week for the Gin College picks section. And that was a close game. That was a nail biter. That was the only leg I needed to hit on a 5-legger. So it was a little bit heartbreaking, but I had to get back to the drawing board and reevaluate my strategy. So just one of those things. Then you got UNC, North Carolina, losing to Georgia Tech 45-22, and they drop out of the top 25. Crazy. A lot of teams getting knocked out this week. A lot of newcomers to the top 25 AP polls.
Yeah, it's very, very volatile up towards the top of the 25 right now.
It is. And it's
we forgot to touch on West Virginia, Oklahoma. That was a huge one.
That's right. Let's talk about that one. So the Sooners stay 4-0. They beat West Virginia in a nail biter, 16-13. Radler going 6 for 6 for 54 yards on the last drive to the game-winning field goal. Were you surprised at the Sooners seeing and facing adversity in this game against the Mountaineers, or was this expected?
I think the line was like they were 19-point favorites or at least 2 touchdown favorites, and I knew that was a little too much. I didn't know they would struggle this bad, but after struggling to Tulane and to Nebraska, I mean, it shouldn't be too surprising to anybody. But what's more surprising and concerning is the Oklahoma home crowd booing Spencer Radler in the beginning of the game, and multiple times they were chanting for the replacement, Caleb Williams, to come in, and that just doesn't look good for recruits, for prospective fans. Even it's just to boo your quarterback like that when he's facing a little bit of adversity in week 4 when they're 4-0. You know, I mean, like it's a little crazy.
Yeah, it's a little hard to watch, and especially amidst in a home game. You don't expect that in a home game. Especially when it gets close towards the end. Maybe a quarterback's going to face some adversity throughout the game. Got to have faith in your quarterback. And I'm not against moving on and kind of chancing other quarterbacks at those positions to get the chance to really propel their team into the win column. But you got to trust your quarterback. You got to trust who you got in there and who your coaches put in there to do the job and get the job done, especially in nail-biting situations.
And I mean, his expectations since before the season have been astronomical, and he's a Heisman favorite. I think he's still like 5th in the Heisman odds. And yeah, so the expectations are high, and I mean, still had a decent game. But for look, if you're a recruit coming in or you're a 3rd string quarterback and waiting redshirted right now, and you're watching this guy get booed, Spencer Radler, what's going through your mind?
Questions to be asked. Great questions to be asked. Let's talk about the AP polls. So obviously you got Bama at the top, 4-0. Big surprise there, I know. Then you got Georgia and JT Daniels right behind them at number 2. Oregon at 4. Oregon at 3. Penn State at 4. Iowa at 5. OU at 6. Luckily, they barely squeezed through that one. They would have dropped considerably if they had lost that game. And then 7, Cincy, 8, Arkansas, 9, Notre Dame, 10, Florida. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. We can look at that a little further. You have the AP polls. Everybody hopefully watching this has access to the internet, so you can Google that pretty quickly. But I'll probably share that on the Gin College Instagram sometime today, just for your viewing pleasure. But how are we looking at this landscape? Like you said, Cody, it's very volatile right now. Where are we expecting this to go going into further conference play?
It's going to be interesting down the stretch how it goes. There's going to be a lot of chaos, in the Big Ten. You got almost 4 or 5 teams in the top 15. They're going to start matching up soon. Same with the SEC, and it's going to look a lot different, I think, in a couple weeks here.
Yeah, it's going to look a lot different, and I am excited about it. So I guess let's talk about our picks. Let's talk about our picks this past week. A little bit crazy, a little bit dicey. Obviously you don't want to start out picking too many games. I think we both went with 4, or actually, no, you went with 5. I went with 4. So I took UCLA -4. I don't think that hit. Did it? Did that hit?
Yeah.
UCLA -4. That did hit.
They won by 11.
That's right. We got lucky there against Stanford. I took the under -5, or not minus nothing. 59.5, that hit by 0.5, which is half a point. Then MSU -5, that did not hit, especially winning by a field goal from Matty Coggs. Got lucky if we punched in the end zone, then we hit that bet. Then Texas A&M -5.5, that did not hit because the Razorbacks brought their wrath to the Aggies. And then Cody, I'll let you kind of explain your bets if you'd like, or I can do it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, took Mississippi State. I thought the Bulldogs were going to come in and upset the struggling LSU team, but LSU, they held tough. They were resilient. They only won by 3, so it tells you what kind of game it is. Check out Mississippi State's quarterback if you guys haven't already. He's lighting it up. So that was some of my reasoning. Texas Tech, I picked them to go to cover the +9, and they did not at all. Texas, I think, is still scoring touchdowns right now. It's like 70-35, and they just completely beat the brakes off them. So that was a big miss. Clemson, thought they'd rebound. I took them to cover. They're 10-point favorites, and we all know how that went. Stanford, they were super close there in the fourth quarter. I thought that they were going to cover. UCLA pulled away, and yep. And my only good call of the weekend, even though I did verbally call the Razorbacks taking the dub over the Aggies, Nebraska +5, they did cover, but like Jen said, barely did, and yeah, I'm just lucky to have that one on the record.
Yeah, at least you want to go into a win, at least 1-4 going into the first week or into essentially week 5. But we just started the Gin College picks, so make sure to focus on those coming out every Friday, probably around 6:30, 7 o'clock. Look on the story at Gin College on Instagram. Make sure to check those out. Stay posted that. So actually got a couple comments here you got to address. I'll address this one. Reversal. Smitty, what's up, brother? So you asked me, I hit 4 out of 5. I'll tell you that 4 out of 5 right now. So I hit Illinois +11 against Purdue. It was kind of a little bit of a dicey one. Purdue's a good team. Then I took Notre Dame money line. That was +225. That was pretty good. Then I took I took Kent State Golden Flashes at Maryland Terrapins under 71.5. I'm like 71.5. I don't think they're going to put that many points up, or at least Maryland probably putting most of the points up. Didn't happen. And then whenever I see an over 70, I'm really looking and licking my chops at the under, because if that hits for the over, I mean, you got to have, pretty good offensive game on both sides of the ball. And then finally, I had the SMU Mustangs at the TCU Horned Frogs under 79.5. So, and then I also had Mississippi State money line against LSU. That was the game that didn't hit. It was just kind of one of those things. Lost by a field goal. LSU, they've been losing some questionable games. So Mississippi State was looking good. I was anticipating them to win that. I was hopeful. Anyway, I put some work into that parlay. Didn't hit. It was actually 5 to win 415.69. I had a 25% profit boost on that one on the Caesars Sportsbook. So took it on the nose. That one hurts a little bit, but anywhere from the 3 to 5 leggers. I was talking with my buddies today earlier. The 3 to 5 leggers, I mean, those are very possible to hit. I think your odds are the best as far as hitting those, especially if you're taking money lines or if you're getting teams that they're plus whatever. You like to have, somewhat of an advantage there. You don't want to have to cover too many points. Anything more than a touchdown, 7.5, kind of stay away from that as far as your odds, unless you're just so confident in that pick. But yeah, increasing your odds in a parlay. I mean, your odds are always going to be very low. So many factors going into every pick. But they're exciting, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a big payout. So I'm a big parlay guy, enthusiast, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, exciting.
You want
stuff.
to talk about that longest field goal in NFL history real quick?
Yeah,
Lions
let's talk about
that.
Let's talk about that. There's a good video on Instagram of that, especially after hitting the crossbar. And clearing it barely. I mean, if that would have been an inch, 2 inches shorter, that's not going in.
Only the Lions, man.
Only the Lions.
Letting up a 4th and 19 before that.
Yeah, and another game we should talk about too is last night's game, Green Bay, San Francisco. That was a nail biter. Nail biter. Jimmy Garoppolo, and when they punched that touchdown in with probably 48 seconds left, they're like, you know what? we won the game. They were getting hyped up. They're doing high fives, doing all kinds of stuff, chest bumps. And then Aaron Rodgers comes down in a 1-minute drill and gets it in field goal range for Mason Crosby to finish the game and have the Packers win.
Yeah,
and
you can't count that guy out, man.
You can't. And they led for most of the game. To see San Francisco come back, show resiliency, build on what they had, and give themselves a real chance late in the game to win that game. It was impressive from both sides. Great game, great contest all around. Really enjoyable content.
Vontae Adams looking like a monster, man.
That hit on Devontae Adams too. That was kind of scary. There was no flags on it. He went up for the ball. Clearly didn't catch the ball. He high pointed it, but then on his way down, he was already wrapped up. Another guy came in and looked like he got the crown. I mean, that would have been a targeting call all day in college.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah. That's the kind of consistency that I've alluded to before. How do you let certain stuff slide and then other?
Yeah. And, sometimes I like to see, I'm a let the boys play kind of guy. But in that instance, and I hate the Packers, but in that instance, I think a flag should have been thrown just because it looked scary. It didn't look like a good, solid hit. It didn't look like a clean hit. And we all know the Packers could have used that flag in that point in the game. They still squeezed out the win. So
I think all the Gin Pros in our Gin League Invitational are projected to get our first win of the season.
Yes, they are. I got my first win against 810 Major. Very happy about that. And I think he was on auto pick the entire draft. But we'll take it. We'll take it.
You take the dubs when you can get them.
1 and 2, we'll take it. And I took an L in my other league, so I'm 0-3 in that one. So we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the 1 and 2. But it is what it is. Got another comment from Reversal, and we'll start to wrap it up. Who wins tonight, and who are your scores for Monday Night Football? This is a great question for Seth. I wish he was here to answer this. His Eagles playing the Cowboys. So great question. I've been thinking about this all day long. Cody, I'll let you answer this first, and then I'll give you my input.
So I've watched both of the Cowboys' first games, and I like how they look. I really don't like the Cowboys, but Seth is one of my best friends, and so I don't like the Eagles at all either. But I like I said, I haven't watched them. I don't know really what they're bringing to the table. I'm facing in my other league, trying to go 2-1 now, 1 and 2. I'm facing Eagles and Cowboys, so I really don't know what the hell I want to happen. Yeah,
it's a little bit of a toss-up for me.
NFC East games always are, man. It's a dumpster fire over there.
Yeah, I trust me, I hate the Eagles and I hate the Cowboys. I probably hate the Cowboys a little bit more, though. But that's irrelevant. I'm looking at this completely objectively. Remember, bet with your head, not with your heart. Very important to remember that.
So he wants us to give scores and a pick?
Yeah, I guess we'll give him a score. So I'm gonna take Philly. Let's say 31-24. 31-24. Win by a touchdown. I like Jalen Hurts a lot, and I think he can really control that offense. I think they can win. Are they playing in Jerry's World today?
I am not positive on that.
Because that could influence my pick.
Let's check that real quick.
Let me check it real quick. Please stand by, ladies and gentlemen.
You guys want to listen to us for a little longer anyway?
We're just going to stay live until 7 o'clock tonight. And
okay,
you guys can get sick of us.
Let's see here. I think it's in Dallas, yep.
In Jerry's World. Yep. So, I mean, that kind of influences things a little bit, but I'm going to stick true to my pick. Take the Philadelphia Eagles 31-24. That's my final.
All right. I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys 24-14.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks. Good deal. All right. We'll start to wrap it up. Cody, you got anything left for the people before we get off today?
Enjoy Monday Night Football. Have a good week, and see you guys on Friday.
Yep. Make sure to see us on Friday. And we'll give you guys the content for the week upcoming as far as college football is concerned, getting into conference play. Really excited about it. But make sure to stay posted on our social media accounts and outlets just for all news and things like that. Stay posted to our website for all sports news. Got a new page on the Gin Pros website, ginpros.org. You can see it at the bottom right of your screen. And it's a Gin Sports Network page. We're going to have a special column in there for Gin College content. So look forward to that coming very soon. And we will get back to you on Friday. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II with Cody IG. Have a great day.